Help others because they need your help. Help others because they are impoverished or they are going through difficult times. And that's all true. That's all true. But a lot of times the focus becomes help others because they need you. I'm actually going to stand up here and say something totally different. And that is this. I'm going to ask you to help others because you need them. And yet I am telling you that you need them, and that's unusual. That's a strange thing to say, and I'll explain why I'm saying that. The reason why I'm saying that is and this is the argument I want to make just for the next few minutes that I have, is that actually when you help another person, you're helping yourself. And that may seem strange. We may not have ever thought of it that way, but in fact, that's the truth. That when you help another person, the very first person who you're helping is yourself. And that helping that other person is a beautiful consequence of help and service, but essentially you are helping yourself first and foremost. And I'm going to tell you why that's the case using two different methods, two different paradigms. So when I talk about this, I like to talk not only from an Islamic point of view, but even just simply from a secular psychology point of view. What studies have found that study things like, that look into things like happiness, things like well-being, things when, there's a lot of studies nowadays that move away from this whole focus on abnormal psychology. Traditional psychology has been very focused on looking at a human being and thinking, okay, this is what's wrong with the human being, and here are the symptoms, and here are the treatments. But there's a new wave of psychology called positive psychology. And positive psychology its focus is a little different. Its focus is more on how can we help human beings, how can we study what will help increase well-being. This is the wave of psychology that studies things like happiness. How do you increase happiness? How can I live a higher quality of life and have a greater well-being? Now, in this research, what they found is one of the things that they found is that when it comes to happiness, happiness is one of those things we tend to think that if I can just achieve X, Y, Z, then I will be happy. If I could just get that job, or if I could just get that raise or that house or whatever it happens to be that we believe will give us that happiness, we think that happiness is something that once I receive this thing, then I will be happy. But what they found, interestingly enough, in research is that when people have events in their life which they consider very positive, they win the lottery, they get a new job, something that they really, really want, that what happens to their happiness is there's only a temporary spike. There was another study, so everyone tells you money doesn't buy happiness, right? Everyone knows that. This actually isn't true. Money does buy happiness. And now people are wondering, well, what's wrong with her, right? Money does buy happiness, but what's interesting is it only buys happiness when you spend it on others. That they found that in these studies that the people who were using their money, who spent money on others, that it in fact did make them happier. But when they spent it on themselves, it did not. Isn't that fascinating? So I have this money, but if I spend it on myself, it doesn't really do much for my own well-being or my own happiness. It doesn't increase my happiness. However, they found that when you spend it on others, it actually makes you happier. And this was such a powerful result, such a powerful outcome, that they found it even applied. If I even call to mind something that I bought for another person or something I spent on another person, even that will make the person feel happy. Just remembering a time when they spent on others, it will actually make them happy. It will increase their happiness. So now we're starting to see a trend here, right? That this is something within the fitrah of a human being. This is something that is divine. It's a divine design. That it's something that the Creator has designed and inputted within the human being, that when I give to others, I feel good. That it actually makes me feel happier to give and help and serve others. Now, something else that they found, And I said, it's very, very difficult to increase that baseline happiness. Something else, only other thing that they found reliably to increase happiness, the entire baseline, is the practice of gratitude, is to show and practice regular gratitude. So something, for example, like keeping a gratitude journal, writing down 5 things every day that you're grateful for will, in fact, increase your baseline happiness, and has been found to be a powerful treatment for depression. That if they have people who are suffering from depression, just having them keep a gratitude journal will actually help them in treating their depression. Similarly, when a person is suffering from depression, when a person is suffering from any kind of difficulty, when they themselves are in a low place, they themselves are suffering, one of the fastest ways to come out of your own suffering is to help another person who's suffering, is to aid another person who is in difficulty, to serve someone else. And in fact, it's extremely therapeutic for the one who's suffering. That it's one of the fastest ways to come back out of your own dark place is to help another person who's in a dark place. So you find that these are just again secular psychological reasons why service is in fact serving myself. That essentially that when I serve another person, I'm actually helping myself, I'm serving myself. Now, if I switch over to the Islamic paradigm, and what does the text say about service? What does the text in the Quran and the Hadith and the Sunnah say about serving others? It'll blow your mind when you read how much emphasis there is within our tradition, within our deen, about serving others and helping others, and the immense reward for that. And there's a hadith that actually says this, that says that those who do not show mercy to those on the earth will not be shown mercy from the one in the heavens. That Allah will not show mercy to a person who doesn't show mercy to people. And so what we always have to keep in mind is this: how I am with people, how I am with the creation, is a reflection of how God will be with me, not only in this life, but in the next as well. But also in the next. And that takes me to the next step. I've spoken so far about the reward in this life. And there is a reward. There's, in fact, first I said there's an intrinsic and immediate reward in this life, in that I actually feel happier, and it's an alleviation of my own pain. It's an alleviation of my own pain to help another person who's in pain. And that's a fact, and it's been shown in countless studies. Not only is it that intrinsic, immediate reward in this life, but on top of that is that I will also be blessed by God in this life. One thing anyone who's ever done it will attest to, and I know anyone in this room can attest to this, any amount of money, actually any gift, but we'll start with money, any amount of money that you give for the sake of Allah, it always gets returned to you. And when it gets returned to you, it's usually multiplied. And I always see people nodding their heads, because if you try it, you know it. It's experiential. That you, in fact, do not lose the money that you give for the sake of God. You actually don't lose it. It becomes like an investment. So you see, for example, if I were to ask people in this room, does investing your money mean you're losing your money? Everyone in this room would know what the answer. When I invest my money, what am I doing? Am I losing that money? Question. I'm actually growing that money, right? But if I ask a little kid, a 5-year-old, if I ask a little kid who only has saved up $20 and they're really excited about the 20, and now I ask that 5-year-old kid to put that $20 into an investment, they will feel what? That they've lost that money, right? Why? Because the understanding of that child is not as advanced. The understanding of the child is, as soon as I let go of this money, it's lost. Now, why am I saying that? Because some of us, we sort of have the spiritual understanding of the 5-year-old. That we think sometimes that when we give money for the sake of Allah, we're losing it. And that's why it's hard to give. That's the reason. Because no one wants to lose. No one wants to lose. But the reality is, it's in fact an investment. It's that we're investing that money. We're not losing that money. There's a very powerful lesson that the Prophet ﷺ taught us through an incident that happened with Aisha radiallahu anha. What happened was, one time when he was out, she had donated, there was like a lamb or a goat, and what happened is, when he returned, she told him that I gave all of this animal for the sake of Allah, and I only just kept your favorite part for us. And you know what? His answer was so deep. He said, in fact, we've kept the part you gave, and we've just lost the part you kept. Does that make sense? I'll repeat that. What he's teaching her is that the part that she gave for the sake of Allah is the part they're keeping. Because there's no loss in what you give for the sake of Allah. There's no loss. It's just an investment. It's an investment that gets returned manyfold, just as investments do. That's the whole point of investment. It doesn't just come back as you gave it, but it comes back multiplied. So he says to her that the part that you gave is what we kept, and the part that we kept is what we lost. And that's powerful. That's very powerful. One of the ayahs in Surah Al-Asr, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes an oath by time. And if you actually study the surah, it's just 3 ayahs, but scholars say within these 3 ayahs you can understand your whole deen. Very, very powerful ayahs. Allah makes an oath by time. After making this oath, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Indeed, mankind is in a state of loss. Indeed, mankind is in a state of loss. See, the nature of this life is that we're always losing things. It's an existence that's passing away, right? What are we losing? We're losing time, we're losing health, we're losing our abilities, we're losing beauty. Everything is slowly deteriorating, right? We move towards aging, we move towards sickness. This is the nature of dunya, right? There's nothing you can do about it. No matter how much plastic surgery you get, no matter how many ageless creams you use, you can't stop it from happening, right? And so Allah is telling us this reality. But here's something so powerful. Allah then says that there's an exception. After saying, وَالْعَصْرِ إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ. Indeed, mankind is in a state of loss, overall universal loss, right? Then he says, إِلَّا. إِلَّا means except. So now there's an exception to this rule of loss. There's an exception. Who are those who are exempt? The exception, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا, except those who believe. إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ, and do righteous deeds. See, iman by itself, faith, a lot of times people, they think that all that matters is faith in the heart, but it doesn't show up in action. It's not enough, right? We can't say, I pray in my heart, I fast in my heart, I wear hijab in my heart. It's something we have to also do externally. And so Allah is saying, إِنَّ الْإِنسَانَ لَفِي خُسْرٍ إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ. So those who believe, that's the first qualification. The second is they do righteous deeds, that they turn that belief into action. And then, إِلَّا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ. It's completely comprehensive. They believe, they do righteous deeds, and then they enjoin others. They call one another. They do not only believe and practice in private, and in their rooms and in their caves and in their masajid, but they go out to the community, they work and they serve and they call others to goodness. Tawasaw bil haqq, they call for truth. These people who are standing and protesting now, right? They are seeing a situation which they believe is unjust. Even if it's not affecting them directly, but they see that it is unjust and they are going and standing for truth. This is what a believer should do. That it's not only what's affecting me and my family, right? It's not only about just praying and fasting and going to the masjid and coming home, but it's also service. It's going out and helping and standing for justice and standing up for what's right. So this is part of the qualifications. They believe, they do righteous deeds. They enjoin one another to truth, وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالْحَقِّ وَتَوَاصَوْا بِالصَّبْرِ, and they enjoin one another to patience. Because in order to take this path, you're going to have a lot of patience, and you're going to have a lot of perseverance, and you're going to have to be able to stand firm. And so what does this teach us? It teaches us that everything we own is actually in a state of loss. That we are in a state of loss of every single thing that we own, our money, our health, our time, except those things which we give to Allah. And so that's really powerful, because our money, just like this example with the goat, our money doesn't go with us in our grave, does it? Is there anyone in this room that's going to take their money with them to their grave? False. We actually can take our money to our grave. How? Well, that sounds insane. The Prophet ﷺ said that when a person dies and enters their grave, all of their deeds end except for three. Except for three. And what are those three things? One of them is something called sadaqah jariyah, which means a sadaqah, a charity that you gave that continues to benefit others. It's actually going to come back to your grave. So your money is coming back to you in your grave, but only that which you gave to Allah. Isn't that powerful? The rest stays. The rest stays. The rest doesn't come back with you. Only that which you give, you keep. And that's the lesson. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم إنه غفور رحيم سبحانك الله وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.